I think that's all the stuff I have to say about the live show. Oh, that screaming little kid also loved Butch. Oh, I was so upset. So upset. I was maybe 20 feet away. He came up the wrong aisle. He came up the wrong aisle. If he'd come up the other one, like, I would have been so close. I would have been so close to Pete Dunne.
Butch. Oh.
Well, the other thing was behind me, I hear these guys, like casual fans were definitely there, and they were sitting right behind me. Not the little kid and his family that were going bananas. Um, the other family with the mad dad. Like this dad was yelling at his kids about how they weren't getting their Switch for a month, and if they touched it before, then they weren't getting it for a year. And I was just like, okay, sir, your kids really aren't misbehaving unless they're like doing something I can't see. But I was like, you see the shrieking ghost behind me on the other side? Like, what is So he's just like, who is this guy in the ring talking about Pete Dunne? And halfway through the match, he's like, is that Pete Dunne?
No, sir, that's Butch.
Yeah, I wanted,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for the fact that I did not want to engage with this grumpy goat, I definitely would have been like, yes, sir, it is. But yeah, I wanted nothing to do with that man.
Aw. I always seem to get stuck around the people that, like, the only people that aren't engaging when I go to a live event around here, except for the time that we got floor seats. That SmackDown during Kofi Mania, where Samoa Joe won the U.S. title in that 4-way match.
Mm.
That was like the only time. And I think it's because I have floor seats, and
Yeah.
people that are paying for floor seats are definitely going to be more engaged than when I used to like usually get like the cheap seats. But yeah, every other time except for that time, I happened to be around the people that were just there like eating popcorn the whole time. Like,
I always get like, so we usually get decent seats. And there's always a shrieking child, like right here, each time. And except for the one time that there wasn't, and instead, it was at the Elimination Chamber match down in Philly right before COVID started. Like 3 days before, it was like lockdown, everyone. Um, there was like this row of 4 girls, women, I guess. And they clearly wanted to be like influencers, I would say. That's the vibe I got as they sat there eating their pizza and video recording themselves and taking pictures while this match is going on. Like it wasn't during, and I was just like, I hate you. I hope you choke.
I we didn't have a bad like people around us when we went to Money in the Bank 2013 when Orton won it. Um, when Paul Heyman almost killed CM Punk with the ladder when he was like gashed open and turned on him for Curtis Axel. Our seats were up in the upper section, but we were legitimately right over the ring. So we were like eye level with the briefcase. So it was,
Oh,
yeah, they were awesome seats. They were really good. And like people around us, like that was a fun crowd. But I think like the most fun crowd that I've had at a live event, honestly, was the AEW show, the third Dynamite. Like, I don't know if it's because it was so new and everybody was so pumped up, and like it was the first title defense match. It was Jericho and Darby was challenging him for the belt. So it was the first time that the AEW championship was being defended. Um, it was when like Kenny and Mox were having their crazy feud where Kenny had the broom with the barbed wire around it, and like that crowd was a lot of fun. And then the crowd on the floor when we went to that SmackDown, especially weirdly enough during when they taped 205 Live. I don't know why, but like everyone just decided it's like it was like a unspoken thing that we're like, people shit on 205 Live all the time. We're gonna really cheer for these guys. And I remember checking Twitter after, and like people that were fans of 205 Live kept saying that they had to have it in Wilkes-Barre every week because that was the best crowd that 205 Live ever had. And they were like adding Triple H saying like if 205 Live ever has a pay-per-view, you have to have it there because that crowd deserves it. I remember Brian specifically. It was when Humberto Carrillo was still on 205 Live, and
Mhm.
Brian's there screaming Humberto like every time he was doing a move, and like Tozawa was still on it at that point, and like it was like they were good matches, and we
Mhm.
like made it a point to make these guys know that they were appreciated for what they did, and we were so, and maybe like 5% of the crowd stayed. Like most people cleared out. So like everyone who stayed like moved down, and like we were just like all, it was just such a cool experience. That was one of the most fun times I ever had, and it was 205 Live.
So when 205 Live first happened, I loved it. Like, but unfortunately, like most things, when everyone stopped being so invested, like it's so hard when the crowd's not into it for oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we just came out of the pandemic era, so obviously everyone's very familiar with that. But
Yeah.
um I think so with crowd reactions, I I think it might have been that same Money in the Bank. It was definitely a pay-per-view down in Philly. And I just remember when Kane's entrance music hit and like the fire happened. So the fire, and then a woman 2 rows down from me, like directly in front of me, got scared so badly. She went, ah, and she had a full cup of beer. And I
Wow.
watched it go up and directly on the person behind her. Like
No.
I got splashed a little, but like just bam.
Oh my God.
And I,
I
and those beers are expensive, so like no one was happy in that situation.
Yeah, I would have cried.
Yeah, it's like, well, there goes my $10, $12 beer.
Yeah, there's a $25 investment for one cup of beer.
Yeah. It's like, oh God. Um, and and I think it might have been, I don't, it was a Royal Rumble, I think I was at, or maybe it was some other pay-per-view somewhat recently, before, in the last 3 years basically. And Matt Hardy was wrestling. I nearly got hit by him, like in his car. It was my fault. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going, and like nearly hit me with his car. And I look up, and I was like, because I was gonna be like, what the hell? And I look and I see Matt Hardy there, and I was just like, this is my fault. I'm sorry, sir.
I'm okay with this. This is how I go. This is how I go.
Which literally, as soon as I saw him, I was like, I'm so sorry, so sorry. And I walk away. Bad.
Oh. Sorry, sir. Sorry.
Sorry,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah, but you
Don't
know what?
delete me. Don't delete me.
Don't delete. Don't delete. Um, and then Liv Morgan was there, but she didn't wrestle. But when she was waiting to get out of the parking lot, fans were lined up where I was lined up, and people were just yeeting shit into her car for her to sign. And she was doing it like someone threw their title belt into her car.
Those are heavy.
Those are heavy. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, this poor woman. But like, she was so sweet, just like signing everything because she was stuck in traffic. Like, someone threw her their phone. Was like, can you take a picture of yourself? I was like, that's, a lot of balls. You got a
Yeah.
lot of balls. Philly.
Yeah, that's like when just BT yesterday when they were showing Matt and Nick after like hours of travel, and they got to whatever hotel it was at 1 a.m. and Brandon Cutler was with them, and he's like, and look, and there was like a bunch of people that they had 30 of their action figures that they wanted these guys to sign at 1 in the morning after they traveled from the West Coast to the East Coast. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, yeah, you know if they're gonna be staying there, you know they're having a show, but like they're human beings. They just spent the whole day traveling literally across the country. They must have jet lag from the time zone change. Leave them alone. Like, you want them to sign shit so badly, go to a signing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't don't accost wrestlers in hotels after shows, or before shows or during travel days or in airports. Like,
Hmm.
would you want that happening to you? Like,
Right. Like it's very different if like you bump into someone, but like specifically like sitting there and waiting, like I know just from, being a wrestling fan for so long and where people have encountered them in this area,
mhm.
where they do like to go, but I don't go there like after shows or anything. Let these people be.
No, I'm not going to camp out at the casino because I know that they're probably staying there before or after the show. I mean, you know that they stay at Mohegan Sun or right along end it there. So obviously that's where they stay before they like that they have a show at the Mohegan Sun Arena. If I
Mhm.
happened to just be at the casino and was gambling and walking around the floor playing slots and saw like I don't know, like Liv Morgan for example, because you just mentioned her. If I happen to see her like two slots next to me, I'd probably say, "Oh hi, like I'm a fan. Could I get a picture? Like, do you mind if I get a picture?" I wouldn't say, "Can I have one?" Like, "Is it okay?" I would ask. I wouldn't like camp out like some people at like the
Yeah.
front door, like, "Oh, they're gonna be back soon."
Mhm.
Like,
Or those psychos who like interrupt them in bathrooms, and shit like that. Like, oh my god, I would, and it's happened to me at I mean, I was at a signing, but it was Gail Kim. Like, I was using the bathroom at the same time as Gail Kim, and I wasn't a freak about it. You know what I did? I just like made eye contact and we went and continued about it. And now I have this story about how I used the bathroom at the same time as Gail Kim. That is how it goes. Like I did not need to accost that woman.
no, I mean, if I was using a bathroom and I happen to run into like another women's wrestler, I'd probably just be like, "Hi," like at least say hello, wash my hands, and leave. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't be like, "I'm a picture," or like, "Well, hi, Sophie." Like,
Right.
I'm. It's just rude. Like they're human beings. Yeah, they're celebrities. Yeah, they're on TV, but that doesn't mean you don't treat them like a human. Like,
Mhm. I'm not going to lie. If it's someone who had amazing makeup, I would just definitely be like, I love all you do with your face. Something real creepy, gotta go.
I love your face. Give it to me.
I love your face.
Maybe like if you ran into like Ruby Riot
Oh
or
yeah.
Ruby Soho. Sorry.
Yes, yes, yeah. Which again, if I was going to have an actual gravestone, I would have it etched on there that she complimented my makeup one time.
I mean, yeah.
I will tell everyone that story.
Think you didn't you message me when it happened? Like
Oh
that.
yeah.
I don't even think we were podcasting yet.
No, and then like a weirdo. I don't know if I told you this, but I was like so ecstatic she said that.
Oh no.
What fell out of my mouth was like, "Thank you. I'm gonna go update my resume." And I just saw her face like, "What?"
Whoops.
Oh,
Oh,
thankfully, after me was her number one fan, who was like a 4-year-old girl who was just so excited to meet her. Like to the point where when we were in line, I offered to like, I was like, do you guys want to go ahead of us? Like to her parents, and they were like, she can wait. Like it's fine.
I would have like made them go ahead because I'd want to witness that.
That's what it was. I wanted to witness it. That's why I offered. I'm not that much of a nice person. I want to see.
That's funny. I like when wrestlers are like sweet to the kids, like children fan. Because I remember like how much that meant to me when I
Hmm.
met a bunch of them when I was little. Like,
Yeah. And that's another thing that you see during the breaks are like the wrestlers interacting with the kids and I mean other people around the ring too, but especially the kids. Um,
that's what made me like Braun Strowman for a little while because we went to a house show. I think it was 2019, so I don't think it was right before the pandemic, but it wasn't like too long before it. I got tickets for Brian for Christmas one year, and I got decent seats. Like they weren't floor seats, but they were like they were the first row on that first level, so they were decent. And like a house show, they weren't that expensive. That's why I
yeah.
got good seats. And like house shows are a totally different animal than a live event or like a televised event.
Hmm.
they their guards let down a little bit more. Like the heels aren't as heelish, and they like interact with the crowd more. And I remember Braun Strowman went around and took selfies with like almost everybody that was in like the first and second rows and like stopping with kids. And I was like, wow, he's a really cool dude for doing that. Like nobody else did that. Like people went around and a couple selfies and like talked to people, but I watched him. He stopped at almost every single fan that was around that ring and took pictures and signed shit and like shook kids' hands. And that made me like him when I was like not a fan before that.
Yeah. Dolph Ziggler is someone that at a house show, it was when he was Intercontinental Champion. It was him and Miz, and I had floor seats. Not like good floor seats. I was like in the middle. But yeah, I just remember um Dolph Ziggler took and he signed anything anybody wanted. Like he was just going around signing, signing, signing. Because as soon as he started doing that, of course, you see like a whole bunch of people like rush up. I just see like phew, 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 people going by. But yeah, house shows are a completely different animal. Um, for house shows, I think you're better off like paying the money to get closer. I mean, at any point, obviously, you're good, but because there's so much more interaction,
Mm-hmm.
the closer you can get to them, I think the better.
Yeah, definitely. Because like there's nothing at stake. They're just basically practicing for like a pay-per-view match pretty much. Like whatever's coming up on the next pay-per-view, that's probably who you're going to see at a house show as like those two people because they're practicing for those matches. Or like
Yeah.
a big Raw main event maybe, like they'll be practicing for that. But they like Miz was hilarious at the house show that we went to because it was during that point where he was doing when my hand goes up, your mouth goes like
Shut.
shut. So he was in the ring and he had the mic and he was going, when my hand goes up, and everybody was yelling back, like, your mouth goes shut. And he's like, you don't say that, I say that. And he's like, no, shut up. And he's just saying it again. And then the crowd's yelling it back to him. He's like, you don't say that. That's my thing to say. And he was like back and forth with the crowd for like 5 minutes. And like he even started laughing because like the more he was telling the crowd not to say it, like of course the louder the crowd was yelling it. And I just remember him laughing and like Miz was like full blown heel at that point. And first seeing like him like goofing around with the crowd too, like if you've never been to a house show before, it's definitely worth experiencing at least once because it's so laid back and fun. Like
Yeah.